They are playing our song. The Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. The Eagles may be taking some downtime. We know that the players are enjoying their bye week. Went in, did some film work yesterday, but they are absolutely on vacay. It's not a long vacay, and it's not a getaway vacay, but it is vacay. The coaches continue to work, as do Mac and Mac. John McMullen and Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. You look like you're ready. You got your desk working for you, Johnny Mac?
Yeah, a little bit of an issue. You know, I have one of those autonomous desks that goes up and down, but too often it doesn't want to go up and down. So that kind of ruins the whole thing for me. Sometimes you got to reset it.
Here is the big old wooden desk I have. What the hell is an autonomous desk?
Well, one of those things where you can work while standing up. You can raise it. You know, it's supposed to be better for you, get you moving a little bit, that kind of crap. But you know, too often you got to reset the damn thing. And if you're on a show or the radio or something, or you got to be on Zoom, you got to be on camera. You know, you're not thinking, oh, I might have to reset the desk today because it's going to decide not to go up or down. And, you know, my wife sneaks into the air. She lights it up because it creates more room. And and she doesn't tell me she's putting it up. So all of a sudden I sit down the next day and it's up and I got to get it down and it doesn't want to go down. So, you know, this is a lot of inside baseball that no one is interested in.
Well, no, but I am. I know.
It drives me crazy. I hate this desk. I made a mistake. And
did you buy it or did the wife buy
it? She bought it.
That's what I figured. Yeah. So you didn't make a mistake. You just you signed off on it like a good.
I did. I did sign off on it, but you know, I said that's a good idea. It wasn't a good idea.
Well, you look fine, and we got 2 hours to chat up the birds with you here.
By the way, you know what's interesting? You brought up yesterday. Because you had a problem and people were upset at you about, you know, saying Nick Sirianni in the group text and all that kind of stuff. He brought it up again. They're going to group text and watch college football, you know, Army, Navy, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, by the way, he's going to watch his kids' flag football team, which I'm not saying that he shouldn't. God bless him. He's a good dad. Go enjoy, Nick. And he even had some fun going. Or I think one of you guys.
Yeah, that was Dave Zangaro.
Yeah, could be picking out a play from the flag football game. I don't think that's going to
happen. You know where we should pick out plays from? Bill Belichick. That's who we should pick out plays from.
Not from last night's game because that
he should.
And I got a call on it last night. And I commented on what I thought the announcers were saying. I got it both on television and on radio because I was hopping on WIP afterwards. I hooked up my line early, so I heard the end of the radio broadcast. They were talking about how it was the greatest 14-10 game they'd ever seen or been part of. And I'm going, excuse me?
Everybody always has to. Everything's the greatest. Everything this, that. No, I mean, he just took advantage of the situation. The Eagles were in one of those games a couple years ago in Buffalo. People remember that game. When the wind blows there, man, you ain't throwing it. And you're not throwing it effectively. It just, to me, I mean, he's the best coach of all time. I've said it many, many times. And to me, it's about that ability to adjust, which I've said has been a very positive for Nick Sirianni early in his career. But this guy's able to adjust within minutes. I mean, this guy teaches up and has confidence in his players to execute in-game, pre-game, where other teams are like, well, you don't have time to work on this. We brought up that with Kenny Gainwell, the slot receiver. Now, the Eagles aren't doing that. They're not doing it. They're not doing. Well, you don't have time to do that. Really? You don't have time to do that? Yeah, that I guarantee you that's not coming out of Bill Belichick's mouth. I guarantee
you. He had time to put in a running game plan that included 97% runs, 3% pass. That's a little bit of a change on the fly because of the weather, and he was able to pull it off. So, yes.
By the way, Jody, in his pregame, I don't know. People Belichick's in everybody's head. That's what the most. He half the time he's got you beat before you go on the field, as long as he has competent talent. And he's back with competent talent. His pregame speech. Obviously, he's a big Navy guy. I mean, but he's wearing a Navy face mask. And obviously, Navy. What do? All they do is run the football, and people are thinking he's sending a message. No. He just loves Navy. Always has. Always been involved.
Well,
with
if
Navy
he was, that would not be un-Belichickian because he is a cocky SOB. He knows how good he is. He knows what he's accomplished. He could have been tipping the world. Yeah, I'm going to come out and run it down your throats. Get ready for it. Here it comes.
More power to him.
I'm not dismissing that as a possibility.
More power to him if he did. But his history with Navy football. I think it's more interesting that he's in everyone's head to that degree. But maybe you're right. He is cocky. No question about that. But he's got a right to be.
Right. When you've accomplished what he's accomplished, you're allowed to be as cocky as the day is long.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, they're one of those teams with an offensive line. People that don't talk about Jeff Stoutland, talk about Dante Sarnecchias, and they've always had a great offensive line as well. Man, when you have a good offensive line, it's so much easier to do things in this league. And there's so few teams that have it. And the Eagles are lucky enough to be one of the teams that have it. And that's the biggest news coming out of yesterday's press conference. Jason Kelce. They said they got good news. Obviously, they were very clear because they have the bye week. But looks like there's a chance he's going to be back. And that's big. That's obviously big for the Eagles.
That's, for me, as far as I'm concerned, gigantic for the Eagles. We can talk about the quarterback quandary, the quarterback controversy, the quarterback no issue. There are a lot of different ways you can look at it at this stage. There's a major controversy if Jason Kelce isn't good to go. Sorry, Nate Herbig can't snap the ball to save his life. He played well when he wasn't inside at center. Did a nice job filling in yesterday. At the guard position, as soon as he went in the center, he almost killed Gardner Minshew with a snap. So that's kind of important for the Eagles to make sure they have Jason Kelce healthy. We won't know for 12 days. Maybe we'll know before the game, but who knows till we get to next week. You did bring it up. We got off on the Belichick tangent because you were talking about Sirianni and him saying the group text they'll be part of again during the downtime for the players, but not downtime for the coaches. He didn't say they were getting together on Sunday. You told me they were definitely going to be in the building on Sunday.
No, I didn't say definitely. I said probably.
Okay,
they're in the building. I give them credit. He said he wanted to give the coaches some time off as well. I also said in that same conversation, I think coaches are ridiculous with we got to be in the office 24 hours a day. So, they're going to take some time off. And he mentioned, as you said, his son's flag football game. He's going to go to that. And I applaud him for that. I do, because I think coaches are ridiculous. I mean, I always joked about it with Andy Reid. I think that was one of his downfalls. And obviously, when he left Philadelphia, I think most of it was you have a shelf life and you naturally people stop listening to you. I brought up that with Mike Zimmer yesterday as well. I think people have just stopped listening to him. The other part with Andy was the family issues, and the guy works all the time. And I said, it's probably better to have a little bit of a balance in your life, and just from a natural progression. I think football coaches, by and large, are kind of, and Dick Vermeil were in the town where he was probably the crux of it all, really, if you think about his mentality. And then somewhere along the line, and I can't really tell you where, Jody, it became this badge of honor where I'm going to be in there. I'm going to be in the office 20 hours. And there's a lot of alcoholism in that profession. There's a lot of stress in that profession. There's a lot of issues in that profession. And I think it's all tied to this badge of honor that I always have to be in the office. And I would always describe it as you could watch as much tape as you want, and you might pick up the most insignificant tell. Might be an offensive lineman tipping off if it's a pass player, run play, and you figure it out and you're all excited. The key is imparting that information to players. If they're not capable of finding what you find in real time, it doesn't matter. So that's why coaches, it's ironic. They also talk about execution. That's what matters most. Everybody knew. Everybody on Buffalo, they might not have known at the beginning of the game. They should have. But they sure as heck knew pretty early in that game they're going to run the stinking football, and they're going to run the same stinking plays, and they're going to have an extra offensive lineman on the field, and they're going to have that little Harry's going to be the wide receiver, and he's going to block back on the play, and they're going to try to get it to the outside. It was pretty easy to decipher, and they couldn't stop it. And that's about execution.
While I hear everything just said, John, and I agree with almost 99% of it, there'll be in the office day. When I say they, I mean the Eagles coaching staff, coordinated day. You guys are going to get a chance to talk to the DC, the OC, the special teams coordinator. If they need downtime, they need to get out of the office. They need to be somewhere else. Do it Wednesday, do it Thursday, do it Friday, do it Saturday, Sunday. The entire staff should be in the building.
And they might be. I know he was talking about college football. I don't know their schedule. They're not going to give me their schedule. They might be. But I said even if the Washington-Dallas game is on, and that's why I said it's 1:00, if they're in the office, they're going to be together, and they're going to have that game on in the background. But they're going to be doing other stuff. They're not going to be watching the game like a fan would watch the game.
Why not? What could they possibly be doing Sunday between 1 and 4 that would be more helpful to the team going forward than watching the Redskins and the Cowboys? The Washington football team and the Cowboys. Seeing as 3 of their last 4 games are against those 2 football teams, what could they possibly be doing on Sunday between 1 and 4 that would be more important than watching that game?
Cutting up film, game planning. Remember, the TV version isn't the most important one for them.
Understood.
Remember, a typical week, everybody plays on Sunday. You're getting that film anyway. You still have the same time with that film immediately after the game ends. So it's not like the Eagles are like schlubs like me, and they have to wait for Game Pass to finally, which is the worst thing ever offered by the NFL. For some reason, a $13 billion company can't get that right, but that's another conversation. They don't have to wait. We all sit there as writers. We wait for the all 22 Tuesday. Where is it? Where is it? No, they get it right away. So as soon as the game ends, they get it. So, I mean, to me, it's not that big of a deal. And Nick has explained in the past when he's played on Thursday, I think it was the Thursday week. And yeah, he'll have the game on in the background. He'll watch the game, but he's not sitting there intently. He's doing other stuff. He's game planning. He's getting ready. I mean, it's just not the TV program, the TV actual view of the game is just not that important to the coaches. Now they want to see what happens, and that's why they have it on, but they're not gonna be entrenched. It would be how I would describe it.
That's fine. That's the way you look at it. Here's the way I look at it. Get in front of the TV. All of you, get around the TV. Hear what Romo's got to say. I like Romo. I think Romo's good. I like the way he second guesses and pre-guesses the offense before stuff even comes down. Yeah, you have the rest of the week. The Eagles would usually be playing, so you have your entire week in front of you laid out as it always can be. You had several days off to recharge your battery, even as coaches. Sunday, when you would usually be playing, should be dedicated to be in front of a TV and watching the Washington football team and the Cowboys. That would be me. If I were Jeff Lurie, if I were the only owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, And I was in the stadium Sunday at 2:30, and I walked downstairs, and there wasn't a television on that all my coaches were sitting around watching it. I'd be pretty damn disappointed. But that's just me. I guess I'm a little different than you.
Well, I
other
mean,
people.
you like, for instance, generally, and Nick has been a little bit more evasive as to what he gives each of his offensive coaches, because he wants everything. If something goes wrong, he wants you to blame him. He doesn't want you to blame Shane Steichen or Kevin Patullo or Brian Johnson or what have you, or whoever the game management coach is. Jim Bob Cooter. But he's like everybody else. He's a head coach. He's going to give one of those guys third downs, for instance. So one of the time-consuming aspects of the job is that you're not just looking at the Washington football team on third downs against Dallas on Sunday. You're trying to go back the entire season. Okay, what do they do? Taylor Heineke, what do they do well? What do they shift? What are they going to in third and long? What are they going to in third and short? You're trying to pick up a trend. You're trying to use all these cut-ups. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that. It's not just about what they're doing against Dallas on Sunday. That is the where I think you're a little bit off base.
No, here's where I think you're a little bit off base. They've got 3 hours on Sunday that they usually be playing a football game, right? They play football every single Sunday. Yeah, they play Thursday night games. Yeah, they play Monday night games. Yeah, when they're on the West Coast, they play at 4 o'clock. But you get what I'm saying. There's a 3-hour window in which they play football every week during the season, correct?
Correct.
And they've got every other hour of the week to do what they need to do to be prepped for the next week, correct?
Correct.
They're not going to be playing a football game during that 3 hours this Sunday, are they?
No, they are not.
So what would be best served that 3 hours doing? To me, it would be watching a game between two teams that will be their opponents 3 out of the last 4 weeks of the season. What is the best use of that 3-hour block that is open to you when it usually isn't, because you're not going to be playing a game? I think you should be watching a game between the two teams.
Well,
you're going to play
NFL teams, think of it the other way. NFL teams complain about short weeks. If they play on Monday, they lose a little bit of time. They talk about the mini bye having a little bit of extra time. That's the whole point of having the bye. You do have a leg up. Washington can't start doing their stuff on the Eagles until they're done with the Cowboys. That's where the Eagles have their leg up. If you're just sitting there with your legs up, watching the game, having some Cheetos with Shane Steichen, I think it was Cheez-Its, that's not taking advantage of your time. That's just not the way coaches think. I mean, they're not, and Nick Sirianni talked about, and I mentioned it yesterday on the show, he can't watch a football game like a fan anymore. He just doesn't think that way. So he's not going to put his feet up and watch the game as a fan and talk. I didn't suggest they sit around and get a buzz on, have beers and prepare hors d'oeuvres.
But no, I'm talking about sitting in a room, notepad, your iPad, whatever you need to take in the best information to be able to use it for the games coming down the line. That's what I need them to do. Okay. I just think they should be doing it together so they can crosstalk to each other while the game's being played.
Look at it this way, Jody. Picture the frame of last night's game. Okay. You're playing Buffalo next week, whatever. And it's not a weather game, so it's more of a typical game. If you're Jonathan Gannon or you're Denard Wilson, and you can't even see the defensive backfield and what they're doing, what the heck? What is it going to do for you when you can wait 3 hours and see what the hell they're doing? I mean, they're going to have the game on, but it doesn't do anything for you. They're going to watch the game. They're going to be trying to utilize their time. I just know coaches. I mean, the TV view does not give the coaches the information they want. That's the simplest explanation. It just doesn't. It can't. It's not what they're looking for. So they can go, wow, that's a great play. That's an inventive thing. They can see stuff like that. They'll pick stuff out like that, but then they're going to go to the film and see, oh, what did they do here? What did they execute? How did they do this? The TV production is for the casual fan. It's not going to give them the information that they want on a particular play. That's the simplest explanation.
Well, I'll ask you a simple question then. What would John McMullen suggest the Eagle coaching staff be doing between 1 and 4 this Sunday?
I would suggest they do their normal work, and they're doing cut-ups and they're working on game plan.
No, their normal work. Their normal work is playing football at that time. The normal work
Jody,
is being on the sideline,
everybody
making calls in games.
So what is
They're
the
not
difference?
going to be doing that this Sunday, John. So I'm asking you, what should they be doing during that 3 hours when they would usually be playing football? How would they best be able to use their time? Downtime, rest, breaking down film, whatever it was. What would you suggest they be doing during that 3 hour time period?
I would suggest they do what they typically do as coaches. Now, as I brought up to you before, what about short weeks, Jody? What about short weeks? What about playing on Thursday? What about playing on Sunday then
Correct.
Then
You adjust. You do different things. You don't just stay.
So when you have more
static.
time,
So I'm
when
asking you, what would you do during that 3 hour time period? You've got 3 hours that you never have. You're always playing a game at that time. It's almost like a free 3 hours. What would you do with those free 3 hours? How could they best be spent?
You're so hyper focused on they have to watch this football game. You're so hyper focused. What's the first stat? You just saw it last week. When the Kansas City Chiefs come off a bye, what's the first stat you hear all week? What do you hear all week?
Andy Reid is great after the bye.
All week. Andy Reid, great with the extra prep time. Great with the extra prep time. You think Andy Reid, of all people, said, hey, I'm going to sit down and watch this game of my opponent next week. No, he's taking advantage of his extra prep time. That's what he does. That's what he's good at. That's what you're so hyper focused on. They don't have to do anything. They normally don't have this time. Well, if you normally don't have the time, take advantage of the extra time. That's why you have an advantage over the Washington football team. That's why coaches complain when they have a short week, because they don't have that time. They don't have the same amount of time. It sort of works both ways. You're not looking at it the other way. Now, where I will agree with you, it's overblown. I think coaches blow it up too much. You know, when Nick would say, oh, we have a short week, we got to go. We got to go on this press conference. It could only be 10 minutes, not 15 minutes. That's what we got behind the screen, behind the scenes. That kind of stuff is silly with coaches. I'll be the first to admit that. I brought up Steve Spurrier. But I'm just saying that's the way coaches think. You have extra time. Use your extra time in a valuable fashion. Do cut-ups. Have the quality control coach dig into what Washington does on 3rd and 4 every single play of the season to see what they like, what they do. Nobody cares what Tony Romo thinks about. I care. You care. Coaches don't care. If they have to rely on Tony Romo to tell them what's going on in the field, you're screwed. You're done. You're lost.
Romo may have a nugget that clicks in and perfectly opens the eyes of one of the coaches to something that Washington or Dallas does.
If a coach tells me that, and I'm interviewing him, and I'm Jeffrey Lurie, and I'm out the door, I don't want this guy. If you don't have confidence in yourself to know what's going on, look at Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is like,
well, then, John, don't the coaches share amongst each other?
Sure.
Well, Nick Sirianni leans on his assistant coaches and the like. Should I think less of Nick Sirianni if he's going to lean on his coaches? Don't you get your information? Don't you get your inside knowledge? Don't you try and comb through whatever you can to get a little nugget to improve the team? Are you saying there's 0% chance Tony Romo could give you something like that?
You already have those nuggets. You already have the film. You already have the cut-ups. You already have, like we say it every week, and we do it because we have to do it. It's one of those things. And I personally like to do it because I know the answer coming. This week it was Joe Flacco. Well, what is Joe? You hear it all the time. What is Joe Flacco being on the Eagles? He's a quarterback. He knows the offense. He knows everything. So Robert Saleh got to ask the question. And Robert, I knew what he was going to say. I could have told you what he was going to say. He's going to say, well, Joe's a really smart guy. And Joe's, Joe understands what's going on, but we got all the film. We got all the tape. We got to know what's going on. We have to know what they're running. Things have changed, verbiage, blah, blah, blah. They say the same thing all the time. With quarterbacks, it is a little bit different. They'll delve into the quarterback's mind more than if you bring in, say, Elijah Riley. What's Elijah Riley going to tell him? They know what the Eagles do on defense. It's pretty stinking simple. They know. That's my only point. I mean, nobody's going, and that's not an insult to Tony Romo. I love Tony Romo. I think he's one of the best ever to do that job. I think he's so natural at it. I think it's pretty unbelievable. But there's not a coach in this league. And by the way, I'm not saying there's probably some that Tony's smarter than. I think we've seen that around the league. But I mean, they can't think that way. And if you have a coach that has to lean on Tony Romo, well, you're screwed anyway. I mean, let's be honest. You got a bad coach. So then go find a good coach, is how I would describe it.
No, Tony Romo thanks you for your kind words, and I say the same kind words. And John, chances are, if they watch the game, are they going to find out something, some little nugget that probably not? I'm just saying, if there's a 0.0002% chance, yeah, that would be, to me, more important than re-breaking down the game film, which you could do before, which you could do again after, which you would do for the 8th time. That's not going to change.
And and that's where I said at the beginning of this conversation, the 157th time of looking at the tape and this and that, and that's where I think they overblown things. But I mean, that's what they do. That's what coaches do, and that's what the profession has become. And Dick Vermeil is going to be in the Hall of Fame, and we'll have Paul Domowitch on in hour 2. Maybe we can talk to Paul about Dick Vermeil because he started this. I believe he is the apex of this. I really do.
J-Mac and J-Mac. You got the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. As you mentioned, Paul Domowitch is going to join us next hour. We'll come back with more breakdown of the Eagles and where they sit. 4 games left to play, percentage to make the playoffs. Sorry, folks. Johnny Mac tried to rile it up as best he could with quarterback controversy. Didn't happen. It did not happen. The coach put the kibosh on it. Doesn't matter what Gardner Minshew's numbers were. Jalen Hurts is the quarterback of the Eagles going forward for these last 4 games. We'll come back and talk more about that here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rim...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just... disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Jordan McDonald, John McMullen here with John Birds 365, your Mac and Mac guys. Yes, we were, before the show started yesterday, I mentioned it last night on my WIP show. As I'm driving down the New Jersey Turnpike, I left earlier than you, John. You had to stay for the whole game and get the post-game stuff. I got out of there late third quarter, so no traffic for me. Thank you very much. But I'm already starting to think about what the show's going to be like here on Bird 365 on Monday and my Monday night show on WIP and so on and so forth. And I thought that we would have a bit of a who's going to be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles conversation going forward. It didn't really turn out to be that. The coach put a pretty good kibosh on it as soon as the game was over and done with the exclamation point of course, that Jalen Hurts was going to be their quarterback going forward. He doubled down on that yesterday in his day after press conference, despite the fact that Gardner Minshew had a very good statistical game against the New York Jets. Doesn't seem like anybody who's in a position of actually having something to do with it is wavering, that there is a question as to who should be the Eagles quarterback. It's Jalen Hurts. I thought that was going to be, and I thought it was going to be over the top and more people were going to be calling for Gardner Minshew going forward. It really wasn't near that. I know on WIP, they asked the same exact poll question on both the morning show, the afternoon show. Our buddy Brendan Gouton asked it on Bleeding Green Nation. Almost everywhere, it's low 60s to high 30s that Jalen Hurts should be, and will continue to be the Eagles quarterback. Have you been surprised that it wasn't as big a controversy as me, guilty as charged, or you thought it might be?
A little bit from the fan base perspective. I knew the team. I knew before the game, the team said, Jalen's the starter. They were, concrete about it. It wasn't like, we'll see what happens if he throws. They essentially we even asked certain people, if he throws for 400 yards, you know what's coming, right? And it wasn't 400 yards, but it was a perfect passer rating in the first half. It was 133.7, which I think is the highest passer rating this team has had since Nick Foles in the NFC Championship game. So it's been a while. So it's pretty good performance, I'm trying to say. And we could add the context in of the Jets and all that. You should. But I think you brought up an interesting hypothetical yesterday with, I think it was Chris Franklin of NJ.com. To me, where it really ramps up is if you're on the field against the Washington football team, and it's, I think you said 10-3, something like that at halftime, and Jalen is stinking up the joint. Remember, we've had these halves where it's been bad, and he usually comes on, maybe Carolina. Carolina was like that, really bad.
Jalen's been a better second half player than the first half player. Just as a general across the board statement, yeah, that's true.
But if you start to look at it, because remember, it's getting late. It's getting late early now. You're right there. But if you lose this football game coming up after the bye against the team ahead of you that you're really trying to chase, there's some other. San Francisco could fall off, but you already have lost the tiebreaker to them, so you know that. So it's a bigger lead than it looks like on paper. You're down 9-3, 10-3. You're still in the football game. Your quarterback throws for 40 yards. Then what do you do in game? Then you say, well, this guy just performed well. Ultimately, I think the Eagles won't do anything, but I think it might, especially if it turns out in a negative fashion. and they lose the game, I think then is when it would really start to percolate. But I am interested because of Gardner's personality. I thought he would latch on to at least more of a minority. But I think Jalen Hurts, the difference between Jalen Hurts and all these other quarterback controversies Philadelphia has become famous for is everybody likes Jalen Hurts. Like they like him. They like him personally. They like the way he handles the business, and they should. He's a good kid behind the scenes. He's a work. Everything you hear about him is true. He's a tremendously hard worker. He's a natural leader. I always say how even keeled he is. They like him. Like there was a lot of people who didn't like Carson Wentz for whatever reason. And you go back to previous ones, there was always two different camps amongst Eagle fans. The vast majority like Jalen Hurts. That's what I think it comes down to.
But as you pointed out just a second ago, if they had a chance to know him more, and you don't really get a chance to talk to him much, you guys don't, the fans don't get a chance to hear from him. We know Gardner Minshew much more so from what he was like when he was in Jacksonville than since he's come here to Philadelphia. He had his introductory press conference, and we haven't really heard from him since.
Yeah,
because he doesn't play.
Yeah.
The backup quarterback doesn't get a chance to address the media. So he doesn't get a chance to put across his personality and the way that he goes about doing his job. If we did, I think a lot of people would like Gardner a great deal too.
Oh, they definitely would. It's like the Big Lebowski with a bomber jacket. Dude,
Right.
He's talking about his short shorts, his mustache, his powerful legs. Yeah, I mean the guy's entertaining. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's part of the advantage you have in the COVID area as well. Because remember, if we were in the locker room, we could talk to Gardner, not all the time, but a decent amount of time. And I think you would see more of what you're talking about, because yeah, he's a little bit different, obviously. I mean, he's got the big personality. He lights up a room. And yeah, I agree. More people would get to know him. More people would like him. They saw that video with him hugging his dad after the game. You know, it's endearing. It's not, you know, he doesn't act like an a-hole. He's just a fun-loving guy, and people relate to that, I think.
And truth be told, now again, the stream's not happy with me this morning because they think I'm over the top in my critique of the Eagle coaching staff and what they should be doing.
Oh, they're right on that one.
Fine. Here's where I
like being on the right end for once.
Here's where I'll annoy them again, because I fielded at least 2 calls on this last night, and it always disturbs me when I have to. Gardner Minshew's personality, Jalen Hurts' personality, Gardner Minshew's skin color.
Yeah, well,
Jalen Hurts' skin color, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant. Irrelevant. The only thing that matters is what they can do on the field with the football in their hands. I don't give whit one about who's got the better personality, who's the better leader, who's the guy who the team's going to rally around, who's white, who's black. I don't care. All I care about is who gives them the best chance to win on Sunday. That's the only thing that matters to me.
Well, you know where we are in society. Everything is polarized to a ludicrous degree. You know, it's silly. I don't even like to give it. I don't even pay it any credence. If you bring up any of that nonsense, in my, so I just mute you. You're done. You're in the abyss to me. You know, I got to deal with Jalen Hurts every day because I get this criticism all the time. You know, he, first of all, number one, he likes me. He respects me because he knows I'm fair to him. And we have a good relationship. Doesn't mean I'm going to say he's great when he's not great. It doesn't mean I'm not going to say he's not great because he's playing great because of his skin color. I tell you what the Eagles are telling me. He's the starting quarterback of this team. They say he's earned that right. As far as Gardner Minshew, it's not my fault this fan base has fallen into this quarterback controversy. And it's not just Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. It's been over the years with, the Michael Vicks of the world, the Kevin Cobbs of the world. By the way, black quarterbacks, white quarterbacks, doesn't matter. It's always been sort of a thing with this fan base in recent history. As far as these two quarterbacks, I've been very honest. I don't think either of them is the long-term answer for this team. I think Jalen has limitations. I think Gardner has limitations. To me, the goal is you can't get your long-term answer now. So how do you get to the playoffs? How do you get to the playoffs? I'm of the belief of, what that hypothetical we just talked about, Jody. If Jalen is playing poorly after the bye at halftime, do you make the move to Gardner Minshew? Well, traditional football thinking says no. You don't bench your starting quarterback out of desperation. And Nick Sirianni is more of a traditional football guy than I think people realize. So I don't even think he would entertain that thought. But when people talk about innovation and you got to start thinking differently, which they often do in the NFL, if your lone goal is to make the playoffs and somebody else gives you a better chance to make the playoffs by winning a game on a particular Sunday, do you pull the trigger? I think it's an interesting conversation. I don't think, as I just said, I don't think Nick Sirianni would do it, but I think it's an interesting conversation, especially coming off the game that Gardner Minshew had.
I think the way you answer that question, John, agree or disagree with me on this, is you got to answer that question before the game ever starts. Shoot, I would say Sirianni had to answer that question 2 minutes after the game ended against the Jets on Sunday. What is your main goal in the last 4 games of the 2021 season? Is it to make the playoffs, or is it to continue what has been a year-long process of evaluating if Jalen Hurts is the guy for the Eagles starting in 2022 and going forward? I think we all agree that was a big part of what this season was about. There are many things that you're trying to accomplish during the season. A big one for the Philadelphia Eagles was, is Jalen Hurts good enough to be our guy past this year? I don't have that answer yet. I was hoping to have that answer by this time.
I think the Eagles have their answer. I don't know what that answer is, but I think the Eagles have their answer. They know what they want to do moving forward. Now,
then if that's the case, well, I'm sorry, I don't want to read your mind. Are you suggesting that Jalen Hurts is not the quarterback for 2022? They've come to the decision that Jalen Hurts is not their quarterback.
No, I'm suggesting they're going to look to upgrade in the offseason. And if they can upgrade in the offseason, that Jalen Hurts will be the starter next year. But I think Jalen Hurts is a bridge quarterback. I think the question is that bridge 1 year or is that bridge 2 years? Could even be 3 years. You don't want it to be 3 years. But I think they will look to upgrade the position in the offseason, whether that's via trade, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, whether it's via the draft, that has to deal with evaluation. Kenny Pickett, most notably. Do they like him? Do they not like him? If they don't like him, you just kick the can down the road and you go with Jalen Hurts. If they're not able to get Russell Wilson, they're not able to convince Deshaun Watson, he doesn't clear up his legal issues, you kick the can down the road. I think they have made the determination in we have to get better at the most important position. That's what I think the determination has been made.
Then I will use Nick Sirianni's own words from yesterday's press gathering to ask you a question. Nick Sirianni once again said, and he said it many times during the year, but he doubled down on it yesterday. Our goal is to go 1-0. We're not.
By the way, Xander just put 2 years up for Bryce Young. They're not going to be that bad to get Bryce.
Yeah,
Young.
that's I don't know that they're going to have the draft capital to get to where they need to get get Bryce 1, which is going to be the first overall pick in the draft. Nick Sirianni said it again yesterday. Our goal every week is to go 1-0. That we can't lose focus, that we have to stay so narrow tuned in to the job at hand, which is to win the upcoming and get a little bit better every single week. And a lot of coach speak, and he does it from time to time, and he leaned on it again yesterday. If he is a man of his word, and the only thing that matters is going 1-0 after the bye against the Washington football team, who gives the Eagles the best chance to win the game in 12 days?
I think Jalen does. I think Jalen's a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. I think Gardner Minshew is very limited. I think the more he plays, the more he gets exposed. I think people will realize very quickly he's not going to throw the ball deep consistently. He doesn't have that type of arm strength. It's more of an intermediate throw. So if you get to a smart defensive mind, I consider Ron Rivera that, who's got time to think about it. They're going to adjust pretty quickly and understand they can jump on the intermediate stuff, and it's going to become more difficult. The more he plays, the more difficult it's going to become. I think Jalen gives you, obviously, it's a give and take. He gives you the off-schedule stuff that you're not going to have with Gardner Minshew. And we talked about the second half versus first half. What Jalen tends to do is wear on opposing defenses because of that off-schedule stuff, because he can make plays out of nothing. And, takes tremendous discipline to play a quarterback like that to begin with. And then when you do everything right and you still get gashed, it's sort of a human nature, shaking your head, type of atmosphere. So I just think he's a better quarterback. But, if it coming off a game like that complicates it and Gardner Minshew, because you don't need Gardner Minshew for 16 games, now 17. I always make that slip up. You need him for a half. You need him to win a game. That's a more compelling thought to me, but that's not the way this league thinks. And I think maybe they should think that way more. If you have a capable, competent backup quarterback, and that's what I think Gardner is, a capable, competent backup quarterback. But we all know, Jody, and you hear it all the time, that's a rotational position. That's not a rotational position. Quarterback is not a rotational position.
Not supposed to be, no.
Not supposed to be at the NFL level. At college, it often is. And as I always say, innovation trickles up in the world of football, not down. Why is it a rotational position? Look, if you have a star, of course it's not. You're not taking Tom Brady off the field. But if you have a competent starter who is having a bad day and you have a good backup and you need to win a game, why is that not talked about? Why is that not brought up? You talk about coaches' meetings and what they're doing. Why not? Why doesn't somebody say stand up? And the old Chip Kelly, maybe the only thing I took from Chip Kelly is, I don't want to hear, I'm paraphrasing, of course, he said, I don't want to hear an answer because that's the way it's always been done. In other words, come to me with new information, come to me with new ideas. You didn't listen to them. So that's a different conversation. I don't want to hear that's not a rotational position because that's the way it's always been done. They don't have a superstar. They got to win a game. Somebody's struggling. I think it's worth a conversation. Now, I say that, and people are going to run with it. I don't think it's going to be a conversation. I don't think they're going to do that. I think with this team at this particular time, they have a very small window to make the playoffs, the back end of the playoffs. Do everything you possibly can to get into the playoffs. That's what I think you should do.
To take what you just said and put it into the actual situation we're in. You were talking in big, grandiose situation. We're in a vacuum right now. We know it is left to the Eagles season. There are 4 games, 2 against the Washington football team, 1 against the Giants, 1 against the Cowboys. We know exactly what's left. We know what the standings say. They will alter slightly this week with other teams playing and the Eagles not. So it will change slightly before they get back on the field against the Washington football team. Is 4 games too much? If you're worried about the more you see Gardner, the more you'll know Gardner, the more you'll be able to defend Gardner, because Gardner is not this super talent that can just overcome people knowing what he's going to do. So in the vacuum that is the rest of the Eagles season, you say Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback to give them their best record over the last 4 games of the year.
Yeah, I do. I consider, to go the Jim Schwartz route. I'll use a baseball analogy. You know how baseball people are now, especially now. You can't go through the lineup a 3rd time, sometimes a 2nd time. They got to play Washington twice, and that's the key team. So, no, I don't want Gardner Minshew twice against the Washington football team. Certainly by number 2, they're going to have him figured out. So that concerns me. The Giants are the Giants. They should be able to, boy, that loss is going to haunt them if they don't make the playoffs, because that is a bad football team. And I say the same thing this week as I said Giants week. They should win that football game no matter what. It's a bad organization, bad team. That will go down as a really, really bad loss. Well, it's already a bad loss, but if they don't make the playoffs, and it's probably going to be by 1 game, let's be honest, they're going to look at that game. And then Dallas, we talked, Dallas is a better football team, but they might not even be playing by week 18.
Correct.
So that a lot of that is dependent on how things go and where the Cowboys are.
I think you have to look at the 3 games Eagles play prior to the Cowboys, and you have to keep the Cowboy game off to the side, because too much needs to be determined between now and then to give that actual and fair analysis. All right, one more quickie, and then we'll get a timeout in and start hour number 2. You mentioned that Giant loss game. They surely could have won, and Jalen Reagor dropped the ball. Jalen Reagor dropped the ball a couple times in that game. Jalen Reagor had it thrown to him 7 times. He caught 2. We spent almost an entire week talking about Jalen Reagor, and I kind of buried the guy. And I continue to bury him. I got no problems burying him. I'll tell you who hasn't buried him, Nick Sirianni. He got more snaps than Devontae Smith this past week. I saw, I'm a little bit of a Jet guy, so I watched the game there. I watched Jalen Reagor let a kick bounce and return it to the 6-yard line. I watched him muff a punt. Now, to his credit, he picked it up and actually made positive yardage out of it. I give him at least that. But he couldn't catch a punt. Why is this guy still playing, John McMullen?
Yeah, Nick probably.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't even ask you. Because they have no faith in the guys behind him, which apparently you were very right about. Greg Ward didn't play a snap this past Sunday.
Yeah, they don't. Well, as far as the playing time, and as far as playing more than Devontae, that had to do with they played a lot of 13 personnel, especially in the second half.
And do me a favor, please explain why 13 personnel would be better suited. Jalen Reagor would be better suited to play in 13 personnel than Devonta Smith.
He's bigger, he's stronger. It should be JJ, to be honest. But then I guess they feel they're giving away too much if they just put him out there and you kind of signal. So coaches tend to overthink themselves. But when you talk about receivers and you start to talk about he's on the field for blocking, it's a bad situation. We go back to New England last night with N'Keal Harry, and that's what he was out there for. 13 personnel, seal the edge, cut inside with the block. That's what he was out there before. That's what the Eagles were doing with Jalen Reagor. So it was game specific. I don't think Nick handled the question very well. If they were playing more 12, certainly more 11, Devontae Smith would have had more snaps as he typically does. So it was just they were trying to run the football in the second half, so it got skewed. And then what Nick shouldn't have said, it was true, but he shouldn't have said our punter wasn't on the field all day until the very end, Darren Cepas. So it was successful. So he kind of flexed a little bit there and said, I don't have to explain
Which I had no
myself.
problem with because what he said was true. Yeah. It was accurate.
Yeah. So it was just 13, and they had the blocker on the field. And obviously Devontae. And by the way, Devontae's a better blocker too.
Thank you very much for jumping to my next question. You mentioned on how you have to wait till you get the all 22 tape as a member of the media if you want to subscribe. NFL send you blah blah blah. Now, far be it from me to tell anyone what to do with their time, because I'm trying to tell the Eagles coaches what to do with their time.
That's a sore spot for you.
Between 1 and 4 on Sunday. So this is not a Jody McDonald edict. This is just a very friendly asking of a favor. If you'd be so kind, John McMullen, when you watch the All 22 and you know Jalen Reagor's presence when he's on the field, if you could evaluate how good a job he does in blocking on plays that he doesn't go out, that's a running play, and that would, in anyone's potential thought process, be a choice to be on the field instead of Devonta Smith. Could you please tell me how you would grade that out as a in-depth football observer? Because, and I don't watch all 22 like you do, so you know better than me, and the coaching staff knows better than me. But even on my little watch the game with the announcers talking on Sunday,
when I said that,
being able to analyze football, here's my evaluation of Jalen Reagor. He sucks. He sucks at everything. He sucks at the special teams. He sucks at catching the ball. He sucks at blocking. He shouldn't be on the field. But apparently I know nothing about football because the coaching staff continues to put him out there. So I need to be educated by John McMullen. I need you to watch the All 22 and tell me what I'm missing with Jalen Reagor, that what he's bringing to the table that I'm just not comprehending or missing, because it baffles me.
Well, I will say, number one, because it seems to be a sore spot, I wasn't insulting you. I said coaches don't respect the TV broadcast. That's all. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But
if you want insulting, I'll give you insulting. I guarantee you there are a couple Eagles on the Eagle coaching staff that I think I would learn more and I would trust more analysis coming from Tony Romo than guys on the Eagle coaching staff.
Well, I have a lot of respect, as I said, for Tony Romo. There are bad coaches in this league. I already said that. I don't think the Eagles have a bad coaching staff, but we'll see. It's very young. I think they're doing a good job, and I think especially where it has started and where we've come to, I think people by and large are probably pleasantly surprised that they are competent and they do know something about football. But to get back, and I go back to Bill Belichick again, I have to thank Bill Belichick because he did the exact same thing. So it's easy to explain today. Now, again, it probably should be JJ Arcega-Whiteside. That's the bigger conversation to me. Like, why isn't JJ out there? If all you're going to do is what the Patriots did with Harry and try to seal the edge and try to do 13 personnel. And, Reagor's just a bigger guy than Devontae. We talk about Devontae all the time, 166 pounds. I don't want him doing that. The Eagles don't want him doing that. Now, downfield, when you're in 11 or 12, and excuse me, Miles Sanders breaks one downfield, and then it becomes a big thing. Is the wide receiver going to get a block to, turn a 10-yard run into a 20-yard run or maybe even further? Devontae's actually better at that than Jalen Reagor. He's really shockingly good as a blocker downfield considering his size. But they don't want him doing that, and I don't blame them. They don't want him at the line of scrimmage dealing with setting edges. So that is more of what it's about. If they have 13 on the field, I think the bigger conversation is, why isn't JJ out there? Because he's capable, and a lot of people will say at this point he might be an extra tight end more than a receiver anyway. But I guess the Eagles wanted the speed on the field to at least threaten, the Jets defense and say, well, maybe he can run by us. And if he runs by us, maybe they'll throw it to him and maybe he'll catch it. That is my summation of why they want the way they did. But I do agree with the part that I don't want Devontae Smith doing that. So if I'm 13 on the and previously, by the way, when they played more 13 than they normally do, it was Quez Watkins on the field. And this time it was Jalen. But the one guy they don't want on the field, and they shouldn't, and they're probably never going to have him on the field in 13 is Devontae.
All right, here's again, not a request, just a suggestion while you're watching your all 22, John, that I think could be advantageous.
Why do I get blamed? Why do I get blamed for coaches?
Blaming, John, I'm asking for your help. I'm not blaming you at all. I'm asking you for your help. The Eagles ran 71 offensive plays on Sunday. Jordan Mailata was in for 71 snaps. That means the Eagles had 71 offensive snaps because you would not run a play without Jordan Mailata. Devontae Smith was on the field for 44 of those 71 snaps. So he was off the field for 27 snaps. Just give me a guesstimate. Out of those 27, how many times you think the Eagles ran the ball?
A lot in the second half, probably not as much in the first half, but that's good. We're going to have Dama. Dama's a big. He'll have that broken down already. We'll be able to get the exact personnel groupings and what they ran out of it. So it's good that we have Damo on today, but I would imagine certainly more in the second half than the first half, but they went run heavy, and they should have in the second half.
But I'm going to guess that out of those 27 plays, they ran the ball at least 26 times. That there might have been one play where they actually passed the ball with Devonta Smith off the field. So I'd say that's a pretty good tell. Now, are the Jets smart enough, or even if they know it's coming, good enough to be able to grab and garner an advantage? Maybe not. But other teams with better defenses, by the way, all of a sudden the Washington defense has gotten good again. I know you've noticed, John, but I don't know if anybody else has noticed.
Yeah.
They lost their two stud pass rushing defensive ends, and all they've done is get better at defense since. What we thought was going to be one of the better defenses in football started the season as a bottom 5 defense in football. Now they're playing themselves back up into the top half. Sans some of their most talented players.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's Ron Rivera for you. No one should be surprised that Washington defense has gotten good again. If you do something like tip your hand, the way that I think the evaluation of those plays with Devontae Smith off the field actually play themselves out, Washington will take advantage of it against you.
I agree. Well, number one, it's a much, much better defense than the Jets, and that's, part of the reason. And you're right. You lose Chase Young and Montez Sweat, and you say that's going to be an issue. And all of a sudden, they're getting better and better and better because they have a good secondary, number one, so that helps. And Jonathan Allen's having, a great year. Our old friend Deron Payne and those guys are still there. They had at one point 4 first-round picks, obviously 5 when Ryan Kerrigan was there on the defensive line. So they were obviously tremendously talented in losing those guys hurt. But when Allen's in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, that's how good he's been. He's not going to win it because he's more of an interior guy and they just don't get the love, but he should be in the conversation. That's how much he's dominated. And he's the key to it all. It's strength versus strength. Obviously, the Eagles have a great offensive line. So, yeah, it's a lot different but from the New York Jets. But when and again, I go back to Belichick, and this just happens to be perfect timing because of the game last night. They wanted to run the ball. They weren't hiding it. And I think the bigger part of the narrative of why is Jalen Reagor playing more than Devontae Smith. In the second half of that game, the Eagles wanted to run the ball. They weren't hiding that fact. And they don't want a 166-pound kid trying to set the edge. So they didn't put him on the field. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's the right decision. I don't want him on the field. I don't want him setting the edge. If you're not going to throw the ball, I don't want him on the field. He might get hurt trying to set the edge at 166 pounds. I actually agree with it.
But I'd rather see J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. If you're going to go,
hello,
Jets, we're running the football on this play.
I think is the better conversation.
Don't care that you know that we're running the football on this play. We're going to run the football on this play. If you're going to be as obvious as that, we'll put the best blocker out there. Put J.J. Arcega-Whiteside out there.
And that's why I said that's the better question. Why isn't J.J. on the field? That's the better question. The only thing I can come up there is, again, they wanted the speed on the field just in case, maybe they're going to go play action. We got to pay attention to this guy because he can run. That's the only thing I can come up.
The breakdown comes back 26 out of 27 plays when Devonta Smith is off the field. Then we might possibly throw it because Jalen Reagor's out there didn't actually work. If 26 out of 27 they ran the football. Sorry, your attempt at trying to deceive the defense didn't kick home for me. All right, we got to take a timeout. Yes, John McMullen, Jody McDonald. Paul Domowitch going to join us in less than 15 minutes here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We are in the midst of the bye week. Eagles get some downtime after their win against the Jets before they get to the tail end, the most important segment of their schedule, all divisional Final Four games, including the Washington football team twice. First game 12 days from now. Johnny Mac, I do want to get your reaction to this or your take on this. I got a couple of tweets when it became known that Gardner Minshew was going to be the starting quarterback for the Eagles, that people were asking me, hey, are the Eagles doing what John McMullen suggested? That if it's a 50-50 toss-up, whether Jalen Hurts can or can't play, that they would choose Gardner Minshew for the purpose of evaluating their own offense and what they could do with someone other than Jalen Hurts running the show, because Nick Sirianni has certain plays, certain philosophies, certain way he does things, which work best because Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, which is exactly what he should be doing as the head coach of the team, that he may be able to do some things differently. And shoot, he came out and explained to us what he did differently because of Gardner Minshew and changes he had to make, because there are certain things that Gardner Minshew can't do that Jalen Hurts can do. And you threw that into the mix last week as a potential for the Eagles to react. I responded to all of them in kind. I said, here's why I think it has nothing to do with what Johnny Mac said. Jalen Hurts was inactive. If Jalen Hurts had been the backup quarterback, then I would have to say, damn, maybe Johnny Mac was onto something. Maybe they really do want to take this evaluative stance to a new level to see what the offense looks like without Jalen Hurts. I would have bought into it. When I found out that Jalen Hurts wasn't even active for the game, that a game that they needed to win badly could have landed in the hands of Reed Sinnett, I said, no, he's actually hurt. This wasn't the decision that they made to try and determine what their offense looked like with somebody else other than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was hurt. My question to you is, does that scare you a little bit? That maybe Hurts, his ankle twisting could be a high ankle sprain, and those things can go for a while. The fact that they didn't even risk him as the emergency backup. A couple of weeks ago, I remember Taysom Hill was activated against the Eagles, and he said, well, he can't really play, but he's going to be a backup quarterback just in case. And he didn't have to get in. They suffered through Trevor Siemian and interception after interception. Does that scare you a little bit that they didn't even activate Hurts on Sunday?
A little bit, yeah. And, I'd like to take credit for that, but, what people were saying. But I think, the unintended consequence. What I said, Jalen Hurts was never going to dress. If Jalen Hurts dressed, he was going to play. There was no circumstance where the Eagles were going to
He was
dress
going to be the
him
backup. You
as
think
the
there was no
emergency.
chance he was going to be the
Zero.
backup?
Absolutely zero chance at some point. My thought process was, if it's 50-50, it's legit 50-50. Can he go? Can he not go? The Eagles might err on the side of caution to see what the offense looks like. I don't think that's what they did. I think it's an unintended consequence, a positive unintended consequence that they got to see it. But he was never going to be the backup. That was never going to happen. So, you can only take Nick Sirianni at his word. And I can tell you, both in front of the camera, behind the camera, it was about his health. That was all it was about, as far as why Jalen Hurts sat. You also gathered information on the offense with a different type of quarterback, and it ran very effectively. Now, a lot of context to that. One being the opponent, as you know, Jody, and you brought up, it's not a very good defense, certainly in the secondary.
Specifically,
a lot of injuries.
their secondary, yes.
Yeah, Marcus May's out, their best secondary player. Elijah Riley was on the Eagles practice squad a couple of weeks ago. He's starting for the Jets.
And oh, by the way, just my own evaluative, and again, I rewatched the game. I don't have all 22 coaches. Elijah Riley was their best secondary player. Not close. He was their best guy, who they picked up off the Eagles scrap heap.
Yeah.
Does that tell you enough about the Jets secondary?
Yeah, I'm it's not good. But I looked more to Robert Saleh than Nick Sirianni, because obviously Robert is a defensive guy, came from the Seattle system, the cover 3 system. You know, we went with Gus Bradley to Jacksonville, then he was San Francisco, and then he got the Jets job. And, you know, he said, we knew Minshew was going to be a little bit more intermediate check down where Jalen would run. We knew Minshew would hand the ball off or be more RPO-ish when that happens, if you will, from a pass game standpoint where Jalen would tuck it and run. We knew that Minshew would try to buy time, and he just sat behind that offensive line and did a good job buying time and but finding open receivers. They were a different offense. It was, instead of run centric, it was pass centric in the first half. Then they got the lead, then they just ran the ball.
Right.
What you learned is about positive, by the way, about Nick Sirianni's offense, because a lot of people would say this offense stinks. These play calls stink. And you know, Jody, I always tell you, nobody judges play calls. They judge play results.
Sure.
Well, you saw when the ball comes out quickly, hey, there's some guys open. There's some, you know, dump offs. You know, if something isn't working, you can dump it off to Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell is a good receiver as a running back. 18 out of 18. I brought it up, the targets of Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, Kenny Gainwell, even Jalen Reagor got in that mix. 18 of 18. The only player who was targeted where Gardner Minshew wasn't successful was Devontae Smith, because it was more downfield, but he gave him an opportunity on that 50-50 ball even. And receivers loved that. Give him the opportunity. Didn't come down with it. You know, the offense can run if you get the ball out on time consistently. That's not a Jalen Hurts' strength. So it's a give and take with these two particular quarterbacks, as Robert Saleh explained, because he doesn't have to protect anybody. He's telling you the truth. He's telling you what the offense is with Jalen Hurts, what the offense is with Gardner Minshew. But Jalen's more explosive. He's got more ability. But you would like to see quicker processing speed. You would like to see the ball out of his hand quickly and get to the design receiver a little bit more. These are all constructive criticisms that have nothing to do with some of the things you were saying early, Jody, that I don't even want to bring up.
And here's where I give Minshew credit. And I don't, most football fans don't, but some of the just casual fans talk about it as if it's something different. The screen game, the swing game, the getting the ball in the air to a running back is a talent. It isn't just, oh, you just dump it off. And I think some football fans just dump it. It's a guarantee to be a complete. It's only going to get us 3-4 yards. But just when everything breaks, just dump it to the back. It's not that easy. There is a talent to be able to throw the ball to the running back. And to Gardner Minshew's credit, he hasn't played at all this year, and he was seamless at it the other day. All the quote-unquote dump-off passes, the sometimes I think even number one option throws to running backs, if that's what they're setting up for. He performed that pretty damn well. I got to give him credit, because that's a timing thing. That's a feel thing. And to just come off the bench cold without having played all year, to be as good at it as he was throwing to his backs last week was pretty impressive for Gardner.
Yeah, I mean, past couple of weeks since Las Vegas, that was the demarcation line where the Eagles offense kind of changed from what it was early in the season to what it is, what it was later in the season with Jalen Hurts. You know, Kenny Gainwell had largely gone missing over the past number of weeks. Wasn't even active until the injury to Jordan Howard and Boston Scott's illness. The week prior against the Giants, wasn't even active. All of a sudden, he's a big part of the offense again. Quez Watkins had gone, you know, where was Quez Watkins? All of a sudden, he's back involved. Miles Sanders as a receiver, involved. Hadn't been involved at all as a receiver. We're not lying to you. There was a difference.
Gardner should get credit for that because
More importantly, Robert Sala's not lying to you. He clearly explained the differences.
But he clearly couldn't do anything about it.
Didn't do it. Well, he doesn't have the personnel.
It's nice to know about it after the fact. It's even better to know it before the fact. And it's even better if you can actually create a defense that can stop it. That's kind of your job, Robert. It's nice that you figured it out, but you could really earn your money by being able to stop the other team from doing
my only point, Jody, is he doesn't have to protect the Eagles players, so he can tell the truth. Obviously, Nick has to couch things in a way, whereas the opposition coach can tell you about that team. Now, he's got to couch stuff with his team, which stinks. And he doesn't have the personnel, which is essentially what I'm saying. I knew what was coming. I don't have the players to deal with it. That's what Robert Sala was saying.
Nothing we could do about it.
Yeah.
All right. We know what's coming up here on Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald talking to our buddy, Paul Domowitch. He's next on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy sh! The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rib...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
You got your Mac and Mac guys here with you on Birds 365, and we are joined by another astute observer. Well, at least we got 2 astute observers. That'd be Damo and Johnny Mac. Me, I'm just kind of along for the ride. He's doing work these days for Philly Mag. He did it forever for the Inquirer. Good to get Paul Domowitch involved with us. Damo, how much did you enjoy the Eagle game on Sunday?
I couldn't. It seemed like it lasted forever.
I mean, well, that third quarter drive, Damo, they took like 9 minutes off. Yeah. I looked up. I was like, oh, I better start writing now.
Your Jets are so bad, Jody. It's just pathetic.
In the secondary, they stink on ice.
At least they have the fourth and fifth picks in the draft next year. Although Joe Douglas is going to screw that up. So
shot on goal score. And as I just mentioned to John, if you weren't listening, in watching that game, and I watched it live there and drove home, and I watched it again last night. Elijah Riley is their second best defender. The Eagles couldn't get him onto the roster. That he couldn't break their roster. And the Jets not only pick him up, they plug him in, and he's their best defender in the secondary. That kind of tells you what Gardner Minshew was working against on Sunday.
Yeah.
Speaking of Gardner, Damo, did you learn about anything about Nick Sirianni's offense with the move to Gardner Minshew, which isn't about Jalen Hurts' ineffectiveness, but I do think it's an unintended consequence and a positive one that you got to see what Nick Sirianni wants to do with a guy who's going to process maybe a little bit more quickly and get the football out of his hand on time. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Gardner did was, especially early on, you saw him get the ball out quickly, whether it was to the running backs, whether it was to Goddard. But I mean, and he was using the middle of the field, things that, I don't know how much of it they changed, how much of it's just, Minshew does it better than Jalen right now. But yeah, I mean, Jalen's, I think I saw last week, his average as far as holding on to the ball is like the fourth highest in the league right now. It's like 3.2 seconds. That's a hard number to gauge sometimes because of the fact that he holds on to it, that it takes into effect when he extends plays. But yeah, so I think that tape of that game is going to help Jalen in that he's going to see some things he needs to do, including processing things much quicker.
All right. John told me before we punched you up that you're the perfect guy to ask for this because you love to do the analysis of snap counts and what plays come off snap counts and the like. Yesterday, Devontae Smith was the third most active Eagle wide receiver. That Watkins and Rager were both on the field more often than Devontae Smith. That doesn't seem to make any sense to me, except when asked about it, Nick Sirianni said yesterday, well, we were in 13 personnel a lot. Does 13 personnel equate to, yeah, we're running the football and we're advertising we're running the football in advance and we want to get Devontae Smith off the field because he's 166 pounds? Is that what 13 personnel means?
I guess, Devonta can block okay, so it's not like you don't want to put him on the field with 13. I have a feeling that if Jalen, they can't acknowledge right now that Jalen Rager's a bust because I don't think he is, and they need to get his confidence back up. I mean,
hold on. Hold on. I need you to repeat that. Jalen, you do not think Jalen Rager is a bust?
Well, I mean, they've got to find a way to use him because you don't take a kid in the first round and a year later acknowledge that. So and the only way to do that is to get him on the field right now and somehow find something positive that he can do to contribute to this offense because going forward, I mean, they can't win with just Goddard and Devonta Smith. I mean, somebody else has to catch the ball. When I say he's not a bust, I mean, John knows my feelings clearly on on the abomination of not taking Justin Jefferson over this kid. But he made so many mistakes the other day on returns and everything else. But yeah, I still think they got to figure out a way to use him.
Well, Jefferson only had about 180 this week, but hey, they lost. They lost to a winless team, so. Yeah. It's all relative, but I do think, and I gave Jody the Patriots last night. Obviously, were pretty run heavy for obvious reasons, and they were using Harry, who was a former first-round pick, in that 13 personnel look to just seal the edge. And my estimation there was Devontae. Devontae, you're right, Tom, is a good blocker. He's a good blocker down. I think it surprises people, but to be fair to Nick, I don't want 166-pound kid on the field just trying to seal the edge. If I'm not going to use him as a receiver, I don't want him out there if I'm just going to run the ball. Is that crazy? Because I kind of agree with him in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the same thing with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I mean, he's kind of become a quasi tight end. That's why he's seeing so many snaps, because he can block on a lot of those formations they use where they, so although, I made the point last week, I think in my column for Philly Mag, John, that he doesn't even try. I mean, when they go to 13 and 12, Doug Peterson used to throw a lot out of it. I mean, mix it up.
Yeah.
But Nick doesn't even hide he says, we're not going to, they go to 12 or 13. It's pretty much, okay, we're going to run the ball. And I would say that's really stupid, except that it seems to be working just fine. So I don't know what to make of that. But maybe they're saving it for for these games against Washington. I mean, you got to believe there's stuff in their offensive playbook that they're waiting for the right time to use, and maybe throwing out a 12 and 13 will come up in the next, after the bye. I don't know.
The only way you get away with that is if you have a superior offensive line. And right now, their offensive line is playing superior football. Otherwise, you are dumb to do something like that. Yeah. But if you can be that good and tip what you're going to do ahead of time and still out-execute the other team, you're going to have success with it. And that's what they did on Sunday against the porous Jet defense. All right, Damo, Boston Scott only played 3 snaps the other day, one of which I thought he got away with a blatant pick play on a touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. I'm sure you've seen the replay by now. Eagles get the benefit of the non-call there?
Yeah, I made the point on Twitter. I mean, it's very seldom that a team goes on the road and gets as many favorable calls as they got in that game, and they got a lot of them. I don't know it'll happen again in our lifetime, but it happened Sunday. They didn't really need it against the Jets, but I mean, there were a lot of calls that went in the Eagles' favor. As far as I don't know why Boston didn't play more. I guess a lot of it had to do with the illness he was coming off of.
Yeah, he didn't practice all week, so he was.
Yeah, there's some guys that I'm confused on why they don't get. I mean, Greg Ward is a classic example. I mean, he didn't even play on a snap and he hasn't gotten. I think he's gotten targeted once, that diving drop in the end zone the other day. But yeah, here's a guy that I thought would play a key role this year with Jalen, because he's so good as a zone receiver, and teams have to play zone against Jalen because they can't turn their backs on him in man because he'll run on them. So I thought, well, this kid's going to really clean up. And turns out the only thing he's cleaning up is whatever they have him doing on the sideline. So,
I do want to bring up, because Jody, and I'm going to give Jody the credit to this. It's been, we know this city and backup quarterbacks and its history. No controversy this week, generally, even with the fan base. I mean, Nick's been pretty clear Jalen Hurts the starter, so maybe he cut off some of that at the pass. But Jody, as he often does, brings up interesting hypotheticals, and he brought up the fact that you're playing the Washington football team after the bye. You have Jalen Hurts back at quarterback, and you're really struggling in the first half. And they've had those halves, Damo. Think about Carolina, where they were terrible in the first half, and he was able to come back and make enough plays. They got big plays on special teams, defense, win the football game. These games against Washington are going to tell the tale of this team in the playoffs. If you're down 9-3 against Washington and you've thrown for 25 yards, you want to make the playoffs? You want to try to go Gardner Minshew, or do you stick with Jalen Hurts?
I think you make the change. I mean, I think the way they're looking at it right now, I mean, they've kind of got two competing interests here. They need to find out about Jalen by the end of this year, but I don't know that that's going to necessarily happen. And they also are still in a situation here with 4 games left where they're still a playoff contender to a certain degree. So, like you said, what do you do next after the bye if they're in a game and Jalen's just really ineffective? I think he would have to really be playing poorly, because I don't think they want to do that. And I don't necessarily think it would mean the following week that it would be Gardner's job, regardless of what would have happened. Because I mean, they need to find out. I mean, overriding the playoffs this year is finding out about Hurts, and I still can see this going to the point where they get to the end of the season and they go, geez, we still don't really know. And they go into next summer with the two of them competing for the job if Jalen doesn't prove he's the absolute starter. You know, I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft they're gonna go out on a limb for. I don't know how many veteran quarterbacks are going to be available that they're going to be willing to, you know, trade some of those first round picks for. You know, everybody keeps mentioning Russell Wilson. Well, I don't see Seattle trading him. Aaron Rodgers. This has never been a team that's go for it 1 year. I mean, they're a sustainability team. They want to build and stay good and hope you win somewhere along the way. So, you know, I could see this happening. I mean, we get to the end of the season, they still don't know. We go through the entire offseason and get ready for next summer, and they say, okay, we're throwing this starting job up for grabs. Best man win.
Let me double down on the question John put to you that I posed earlier yesterday about the Eagles trailing in half and the quarterback not playing well. The stats are what the stats are, below 50%, doesn't have a touchdown pass, blah, 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 maybe even an INT. Would Nick Sirianni lean on a player like, I don't know, maybe Jason Kelsey to help if he's sitting on the fence about whether he should make a change at halftime as they're walking off the field trailing Washington 10-3? Would he lean on a Jason Kelsey and go, yo, Jace, is Jalen got a chance to turn this around? Do you think maybe we should go to Gardner here? Do you think he would solicit someone else's opinion with as big a decision as that?
Not a player, I don't think, Jody. I think he would already kind of have a sense of what the players think without going to a somebody like Jason or Goddard or somebody and asking them. I think he would kind of get the vibe just by seeing their reaction to him if he were struggling. You might go to an assistant coach that you might go to Steichen or Brian Johnson or somebody like that. But I couldn't see him doing it with a player, and I think it would mainly be his decision. I think he might even bring in Jalen into the conversation, and say, hey, you're really struggling right now, and we got to win this game. I hate to do this, but we're going to make the switch. What do you, and ask for his opinion. And Jalen, who's been through this before, might say, I understand. I mean, this is not Carson Wentz. This is not, you got to watch what you do. I mean, this kid's been through the ringer as far as being benched, and he knows that nothing is guaranteed to him, even right now. He's playing game to game. He says it every week about, the rent due and all that. So, I don't think, getting back to your point, Jody, I don't think he'd have to ask Jason. I think he would have a sense of what Kelsey felt, but I think it would be his decision.
It was interesting you bring up Goddard there as well, Tom. Goddard was the one guy after the game who said, we'll go with whatever they decide. He was the one who said, I don't know if that had to do with 6-for-6 targets. But, Miles Sanders got involved in the passing game. Kenny Gainwell had gone away, got involved in the passing game significantly. Quez Watkins had gone away, got involved in the passing game pretty consistently. We know Nick Sirianni. We know what he wants to do. That's 11 personnel. He wants to throw the football. So that becomes sort of a tonic for what, kind of gets him a little loopy, so to speak, maybe a drink or two, say, look at this success throwing the football. Or does he know, look, this offensive line is great. 185 yards. We talk about the passing. They didn't get to 200 without the 60 yards from the quarterback, but 185 is pretty stinking good as well.
Yeah. And two things there. One, they were playing the Jets, and so they have to hedge everything about
that's true.
Performance with that. I mean, you can go back to Jacksonville and look at some games where Gardner looked far worse than Jalen's ever looked. Secondly, I mean, you can't underscore the importance of Jalen's running. Even when he's struggling as a passer, he could carry them against Washington. So, that goes into whether you would be willing to put them on the bench, especially if they're, I don't know if it would depend on the circumstances of the game, but yeah, I don't think they're going to be quick to do that because, like I said, going back to the original point, they got to find out about Jalen, and they would have to absolutely believe in 2 weeks that we can't win this game with Jalen, and we got to make a change.
All right, Damo, let me run this one by you. I was listening to WIP yesterday, and a caller called in and said, no running quarterback has ever won the Super Bowl. And immediately Steve Young came to mind, and I said, well, see, I would consider him a running quarterback, and he won a Super Bowl. So I disagreed with his premise. But I guess it all comes down to how you define what is and what isn't a running quarterback.
Yeah.
Paul Domowitch, astute football observer, Hall of Fame voter. How would you define a running quarterback?
Well, you're right. Young found and Young knew he learned as he played to find that middle ground between running and throwing. Because Jalen Hurts cannot have 18 carry games very often. I mean, that's just not going to work. It's not working with Lamar. I mean, you're going to get hurt. So he needs to find middle ground, which is why he needs to improve as a passer. But I disagree with the concept that, what has happened in the past is not necessarily what happens now. I mean, the game has changed. Just look at the completion percentages because of the screens that people throw now. It's not the same as it was back in the day when you might have had better quarterbacks, but they were only completing 55% of their passes. So, and you look around the league now, Justin Herbert, I mean, I can name 15 quarterbacks that can run. Do they run as much or as well as Jalen or Lamar Jackson? No, but they run, and they're capable of picking up a first down if they want to use a design play or whether they scramble on 3rd and 6. So I think you can win with a running quarterback. There are no, drop back quarterbacks are dinosaurs right now. There aren't even very many except for the older guys.
Wait, what are you talking about? Mac Jones went 2 for 3 last night.
Well, there's
tremendous effort, the winning effort for the Patriots.
Yeah,
Mac Jones is the exception rather than the rule to the younger quarterbacks.
True.
Tom Brady, a pretty good exception too at this point.
Yeah,
but, he's the outlier.
Quarterback.
Yeah, he's the outlier of everything. But you're right. I mean, that's the way the game is going, Damo. Speaking of the way the game is going, we got into this conversation. It's the bye week for the Eagles, a very late bye week. Nick Sirianni is, giving his coaches a little bit of time off, which surprises me. And I went back to our buddy Dick Vermeil because I think he's at the crux of this. You would know better than me, but Dick was the first guy where I heard he's sleeping in his office. He works constantly. He did this, and it became a badge of honor for coaches around this league to wear their work ethic on their sleeve and how much they worked. Where are you on that as far as, letting the guys have a life? There's been a lot of, personal issues with coaches because of how much they work. Balance, can that be a good thing with the coaching staff?
Absolutely. I mean, John and Jody, we saw where sleeping in his office got Dick. I mean, it got him to the Super Bowl. It also got him to burnout. I mean, he had to quit after the 82 season because of the fact that he just burned himself out and spent another 16 years in retirement before he came back. So, I've never understood why that's even necessary to do that, to work 16 hours. I mean, you cannot, I've been around enough coaches, including Andy Reid, who convinced me that you can get the job done in 12 hours a day. And you can even, depending on where your house is, you can have breakfast with your, come in early, go back home for breakfast with your family. And granted, there's Andy had other problems with his family, but
yeah.
Well, I mean, I've found that, coaches that have told me that you can do, you've got to get some balance. That's the best way to go. And I, I admired Nick for deciding that's the approach, because I think it keeps your staff fresh, especially with a 17-game season now, and a year. This thing's year round now. This isn't the old days where, after the season ended, everybody got a lot of time off. So I think he's doing the right thing.
Damo, I'm tapping into your years of expertise too. It's the Eagle bye week. Downtime for the coaches. We know downtime for the players. Most importantly is heal-up time. That those who have some kind of nick, some kind of physical issue, some kind of injury, that just doing nothing for 11 days, 12, whatever it is going to be advantageous. How much is the mental recharge? How much the guys that you've talked to said when they came back after the bye, I just got my head straight. I got away from it. It gave me the ability to refocus. Once I turned it off, I could turn it back on. How much do they actually benefit mentally from the in-season bye?
I think it's very important, especially when you consider that this is a bye so late in the season. I mean, a lot of these young players, rookies, who, they're not. I mean, we've all heard about the rookie wall. And, usually the bye kind of helps soften that. This one's coming so late, this bye week, that they really need it. And I think it'll help a lot of these players, especially the younger ones, certainly it's going to help guys like Kelsey and Miles Sanders and guys that are hurt. You would hope they're refreshed physically. The biggest concern for a coach during a bye week, obviously, is your guy's getting in trouble. Somebody that's an important part of your team do something stupid. I mean, as we, John, you guys both remember going back to Niles Bradham.
Nigel's in trouble again, by the way, Dama.
Again?
He got
What'd he
caught.
do?
He got caught with a lot of weed in his car about a week and a half ago, and a gun, of course.
Remember the famous Jim Schwartz quote? You keep doing dumb things, people are going to think you're dumb.
Nigel. By the way, there's our friend Chris Franklin, I believe, NJ.com, got the dash cam video of Nigel getting pulled over, and he was explaining to the cop. He was very affable, and he's explaining he had some bad stock choices, so he had to make some money. So not the best, but Nigel's a good guy. It's sad because Dama, he's made too many dumb decisions. But 33rd team, I want to mention that with Damo as well, with Joe Banner, Mike Tannenbaum, and those guys. Philly Mag with me. Eagles Report is by the numbers every Friday. I do want to, last one for me, I do want to say that go back to this coaching staff, because it is the bye week. And when you go back to Nick's introductory press conference, which made headlines, a lot of bad headlines, to now, pleasantly surprised by the staff as a whole. Where do you think they are in their sort of adjustment to the NFL? Very young coaching staff.
Yeah, what's impressed me the most has been their willingness to make changes when they realize that maybe what they're doing is not the right course. I mean, we've obviously seen it with Nick and Steichen with the reversal and towards the running game. I mean, they've gone. I don't know that you can do this long term. But with this offensive line, like Jody said earlier, got an offensive line like this, just feed them. And so I guess you can run the ball 40 times every week and beat just about anybody if your defense is keeping the numbers down. And defensively, Jonathan Gannon's made, he's acknowledged, he clearly found out that bend but don't break wasn't quite working and has been more aggressive. I'm sure some of his players feel he needs to continue to be more aggressive. But so the fact that they've learned from their mistakes or learned from things that weren't working, I think is a plus. I didn't have a big problem with the fact that I knew when they put the staff together, you could clearly see their attitude, and Jeffrey Lurie's attitude was, I know we're not doing the Andy Reid thing like in '99 where he brought in veteran offensive and defensive coordinators, and then the rest of the guys were young. I think he just said, okay, you put together what you think is a good young staff, and we'll acknowledge you're probably going to make some, there's going to be some bumps in the road early on, but everybody's going to grow together, and that seems to be right now what's happening.
All right, so I agree with you, Damo, that it has, for a young staff, proven it has been able to get over one of the toughest hurdles, which is evaluate on the fly and be able to adjust and change, except for Jalen Reagor, who you tell me they just have to keep throwing out there because they got to justify the second-round pick, and it doesn't matter how badly he plays.
I didn't say justify. I mean, justify indicates that they're just doing it for optics. I mean, I think they're in a situation.
Justify in their own mind is what I meant to say.
Until they get a better receiver. I mean, Watkins is a once every. He's not going to be a quantity guy. I mean, he's not going to catch. He's a guy that's going to beat somebody deep once a game. Or at least you hope. They got to find somebody else besides a wide receiver besides Devonta that can catch the ball regularly and get open. So that's why I feel they can't just throw away Jalen Reagor right now. Fair
enough. They will be playing the Washington football team twice in the next 3 games. Right now, Washington's 6-6. The Eagles are 6-7. Washington's got Dallas this week. If they should lose that game, they'll come into the last two out of the last 3 games dead even with the Redskins, 6-7, 6-7. The Redskins have won 4 in a row in the season. They would have won. They won 4 in a row now, but that go by the wayside if they lose the Cowboys. But they also lost 4 in a row. The Eagles have been more of an up and down, be able to bounce back from a bad loss, put together a good win. 2 different types of teams, 2 different types of seasons, but with the same potential exact results coming into the first matchup, 6-7 against 6-7. Who's got the better roster?
It might be a dead heat. I mean, I just don't think. I mean, this is my opinion. I don't think they can sweep Washington. They're going to lose one of these games. I think both of them will be close. Washington has a defense that can stop these guys. I mean, they've stopped a lot of teams this year. I mean, they don't have any great players. I mean, you look at their roster, you're not really impressed. Taylor Heineke. I mean, he's Gardner Minshew in without a mustache.
Yeah, without the personality.
Yeah. So they've got some good receivers, good running back. But they're not going to.
Jonathan Allen's having a big year, Tom.
Yeah. I mean, their defense stops people when it has to. I mean, 17-15 wins the last 2 weeks. One against the Raiders that can put some points up on the board, but since Ruggs got released, they really can't throw the deep ball. But yeah, so when they lost to the Giants, I thought to myself that there go the playoffs because I do not think they can sweep both games against Washington. And if they only win one, I think that's going to be enough to keep them out of the playoffs. So, I wasn't holding out. I didn't think it was a big part of this season. I mean, I thought that finding out about Jalen Hurts was a much more significant aspect of this season rather than making the playoffs because they're not, even if they make it, they're not going very far. But anyway, I don't think they're going to sweep Washington.
All right, but let me throw one more past you, Damo, and John, please answer this as well. No, it's a long shot either way. Which one is more feasible? The Eagles go 4-0 or the Eagles go 0-4?
Well,
I'll let Damo answer. I'll
say 4-0 because there's no way they go 0-4. But I don't see, so 4-0 is slightly more feasible. Yeah. But
I'm going to go that way as well. 4-0, I'm giving a 2% chance. 0-4, I'm giving a 1% chance. I mean, neither.
Right. But both are very unlikely, but one's got to be more than the other. And I'm with both you guys. I think they have a better chance to go 4-0 than 0-4.
And we may get to that 4th game, and Dallas has no reason to start.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's what that probably ships it the 1%. Yeah. Dallas might not have to play in week 18.
Damo, we'd be out of time. Always a pleasure, bud. We appreciate you hopping on board. We'll get you back on in a couple of weeks. Enjoy your bye week.
Thank you. You too. You guys have fun.
Thanks, Damo.
Looks like you're already at the beach, huh?
Yeah, always. Every day.
It's an amazing thing. John and I had separate beaches while doing the show. Tremendous. All right, he's Paul Domowitch. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. It was happy threesome here. We'll come back. We'll use a twosome to put a bow on the show.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy sh! The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
All right, running out of time on the Tuesday edition of Birds 365. We got 3 more shows to go this week before we ever get back into a game week situation. Bye week for the Eagles, taking advantage of downtime to recharge both physically and mentally. Both Damo and Johnny Mac gave their answers to which is more likely, the Birds going 4-0 or going 0-4. Johnny Mac said about 2% chance they go 4-0. I'm going 5% chance. I have a little bit more faith that they can do that to go 4-0. Now, I have a specific plan to get that 5% to 6%, and it would be what the coaches do between 1 and 4 o'clock on Sunday. But that's just me.
They're like a dog with a bone. With
John McMullen, will you perchance offer to get together on Sunday afternoon with your guy JG? You're going to get a chance to talk to him this afternoon.
Yeah,
you
I love
tight.
JG, man.
You get a chance to call him JG. Are you going to ask him if he wants to get together with you on Sunday to maybe watch a little football? Sunday afternoon, downtime. They're not on the clock. Come on,
Yeah.
JG, let's have some beers.
Well, JG's in the same situation as me. His wife probably wouldn't allow it. Now, I'm not saying that, he's getting some downtime, but I'm not saying that I would be the first choice, but I wouldn't be his last choice. I would say that, but
Well, that's why I'm asking you to ask. Go ahead. Throw it
But,
out there.
yeah.
During
You gotta-
today's Zoom. Is this live or is it Zoom?
You got it. It's Zoom. You got to, when you have that downtime, you got to take care of your home life. You know what I'm saying, Jody?
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking to carve out 3 hours on a Sunday. That's. I'm not saying spend the day. I'm not saying you guys should go down to a
Maybe we'll see
down
each
to
other
Oceans and hang for 24. I'm just talking about a little.
maybe
time
we'll see each other at Lowe's or Home Depot. You never know. You never know.
Okay. You get some. What's the spray in case your desk is squeaking? A little FD40. You
Yeah,
got
WD-40.
WD.
I
That's
need
it.
that.
Yeah. Go pick up some WD.
I got to figure out this desk. I got to figure it out. That maybe I can JG over to figure out this.
There you go.
desk.
Get a little JG help. He'll come up with a game plan to get the McMullen desk working issue free.
He's going to be very, very cautious with it. I need more aggression to fix this issue. Jody.
He's got his way of doing things, and he's not going to be moved off it. No, he actually has, and I think that's a plus for JG. So I give him the thumbs up. All right, partner. So you're zooming your life away. What time are coordinators today?
Noonish. I assume Michael Clay leading off. Then my guess would be Shane Steichen, and JG will be the main event. Just a guess.
In the cleanup spot. So we'll be here to talk about that tomorrow. John, click off whatever you got on your to-do list with the wife and meet me back here in 22 hours. You good with that?
I will be here.
We'll see you then.
Try to be more affable. I think I got you upset with the
not you, the stupid people, the streamers were killing me. No, you and I are good, JM. Same way you're good with JG. But see if you can get them out for 3 hours on Sunday to go watch the game together.
You never know.
If he can't learn from Romo, maybe he can learn from John McMullen.
Nobody can leave because of COVID, so nobody's going on vacation.
That's what I'm saying. You and your boy JG sitting together watching the Cowboys and the Washington football team. Enjoy. We'll be back here in 22 hours tomorrow on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.